Lesson 54, Distances and Dimensions. Hello, and welcome to this lesson. Today, we are going to learn useful vocabulary for talking about distance, length, width, height, and depth. We will also look at verbs used to describe how the size or dimensions of something change. A. Broad, wide, tall and high. The adjective wide is more common than broad when describing the physical width of places or objects. For example, it is a very wide road. It is a very wide garden. It is a very wide room. The word broad is often used in particular collocations, so it is helpful to learn these expressions as complete phrases. For example, economics is a very broad subject. Here, a broad subject means a subject that covers many different areas. We can also say, we came to a broad expanse of grassland. A broad expanse is a large, open area. When stating dimensions, use the number and unit before the adjective. For example, the room is 5 meters long and 4 meters wide. We normally use tall for people. However, it can also describe high, narrow objects such as buildings and trees. For most other things, use high. For example, she is very tall for a 5-year-old. Her office is in that tall building in the square. There are some high mountains in the north. B. Deep and shallow. The opposite of deep is shallow. A swimming pool may have a deep end and a shallow end. In the illustration, the deep end is 3 meters deep, while the shallow end is 1 meter deep. We can say, the swimming pool has a deep end and a shallow end. C. Words derived from long. The noun related to long is length. For example, let us measure the length of this rope. In a swimming pool, one complete journey from one end to the other is called a length. For example, I swam 20 lengths of the swimming pool. The verb lengthen means to make something longer. For example, I have lengthened her skirt for her. The opposite verb is shorten. The adjective lengthy means taking a long time. It often has a slightly negative meaning. For example, getting a visa can be a lengthy process. The compound adjective long distance describes travel or work covering a great distance. For example, Tony has got a job as a long-distance lorry driver. Words derived from short. The verb shorten means to make something shorter or reduce the time it takes. For example, the new road will shorten our journey by 10 minutes. A shortcut is a quicker or more direct route to a place. For example, there is a shortcut to the station. Words derived from wide. The noun related to wide is width. For example, let us measure the width of the room. The verb widen means to make something wider. For example, they are widening the road. Words derived from broad. The verb broaden means to make something broader. It is often used with abstract ideas rather than physical objects. For example, I want to broaden my experience. Someone who is broad-minded is willing to accept other people's behavior and beliefs. For example, she is very broad-minded and tolerant of others. The opposite is narrow-minded. The noun related to broad is breadth. It is also commonly used with abstract concepts. For example, I admire the breadth of his knowledge. Words derived from high. The noun related to high is height. For example, the height of the wall is 2 meters. The verb heighten means to increase the strength or intensity of something. It is usually used with feelings and emotions. For example, the fog heightened the feeling of mystery. Words derived from low. The verb lower means to move something to a lower position or level. For example, you can lower the microphone if it is too high. The opposite verb is raise. Words connected with distance. Something that is far away is located a long way from you. For example, he loves traveling to faraway places. The adjective distant has a similar meaning. The noun is distance. For example, what is the distance from Helsinki to St. Petersburg? This has the same meaning as how far is it from Helsinki to St. Petersburg? Words derived from deep. The noun related to deep is depth. For example, the depth of the river here is about 3 meters. The verb deepen means to make something deeper or stronger. It is often used when talking about feelings. For example, his death so soon after hers deepened our sadness. D. Other verbs for dimensions and changes in size. The verb stretch describes how far something continues. For example, our garden stretches all the way to the river. The verb extend means to make something larger or longer. For example, we have plenty of room to extend the house if we want to. When something spreads, it becomes larger or covers a wider area. When something shrinks, it becomes smaller. For example, the cities are spreading, and the countryside is shrinking. The verb expand means to grow or become larger. For example, the business expanded considerably in the last decade. The opposite of expand is contract, which means to become smaller.